it true? Are you and my wife dating?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't she lovely?
Ah, she's the best.
Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I am Chad, also known as PolyamFam on any and all social media, and I make content normalizing polyamory and just kind of talking about how I operate in a polyamorous space. And today, I have someone very special with me. My wife's boyfriend, Kyle. That's right, she dates a Chad and a Kyle. And somehow enjoys it. I don't know either. So I asked a bunch of you on TikTok and on Instagram to send in questions for me and Kyle about each other. A big topic in the world of polyamory is how metamors, or partners, interact with each other. So maybe we can help answer some of those questions today. How you feeling today, Kyle?
I'm feeling pretty great.
Thank you for joining me on the channel. You will be a great resource to a lot of people who are seeking advice, help, just ways to deal with being new to polyamory, having some issues, stuff like that. So thank you. So the first question is, how did we meet? And what was the first communication like between us? Disclaimer about this question. I say time and time again that polyamory is not all about sex. That said, we did meet at an orgy. Now, we were debating skipping this question just because we didn't want to reinforce the stigma that polyamory is all about sex, but I wanted to keep it because I kind of realized that meeting a metamor at an orgy in the beginning of my polyamory journey was terrifying. I would have never imagined that, but when we finally did meet, it was fine. It didn't matter where we were, like what was going on around me. It was still fine. Like I already knew of his existence, but just hadn't met him face to face. And we didn't really have any problems, did we?
Not even
a little bit.
Like on the scale of potential awkward, like I've met metas before on like a double date situation, and that was more awkward to me than the situation in which we met. It felt not really organic.
I guess it's really organic when you're just at a party with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
No matter the activity level, right? So that's how we met. How did you meet Paige, our mutual partner?
So Paige and I have a lot of mutual friends. The poly community where we live is pretty small. We actually met at the local rock climbing gym, and then later met up at somebody's house. They were having people over for drinks and got to talking from there. I
know that I now go to the rock climbing gym with you as well. Our mutual partner broke her leg and couldn't go for a bit, but that was a couple buddy moments for us, really.
Yeah.
How, if asked, would you label your relationship to me?
I mean, we're friends, metamors. Doesn't get much simpler than that.
Exactly. I think people tend to overcomplicate things like that and stumble over and just be like, well, I don't know, it's kind of weird, and like feel the need to like explain their entire relationship with everybody just to put it in context. Right. But really, you don't have to.
No.
It's fine.
No, you really don't. People that put too much emphasis on that as a rule, I think it ends up being a lot more awkward.
It kind of comes off as, okay, well, this is how it is. This is, these are the rules of engagement, and it's just like, okay. Am I allowed to talk to you? Like, was there any hesitation with dating someone legally married? Was there fear, discomfort, anything like that?
Not really. For me, starting to talk to somebody who is already in an established relationship is a little bit easier whenever it comes to, I guess, anxiety about a meta, because it's not like I'm worried about a fear of loss. That other person was already there before me. So it is easier for me, and I've just kind of gotten in the habit of listening to what my partner's boundaries are in their own dynamic and making sure I try my best to adhere to those and trust that they do the same.
We'll kind of dig into that a little bit with these other questions too, but it's really important, is just as long as your boundaries with your partner are respected and they're making sure that their other partner's boundaries are respected, there doesn't have to be necessarily this whole thing about it. Right.
Not just respected, but actually discussed.
Exactly. On that note, how did you feel about coming into a dynamic with an inherent hierarchy? I know that we try our best to be non-hierarchical, but there are certain things, living with someone, being married to someone, that kind of, reinforces it even if you're trying to back away from it. So how did that feel?
So I don't have a problem with hierarchy as long as the difference between practical hierarchy and prescribed hierarchy is maintained. Practical being you guys live together, you share expenses, there are certain responsibilities that are going to have to be taken care of first and foremost. Prescribed being a partner has veto power, or we can't go to the specific restaurant because that's their special place, or things that seem fairly controlling. A boundary being something that you set for yourself, but a rule being something you're trying to set for other people. Definitely try to set boundaries rather than rules.
I think people go overboard sometimes with being non-hierarchical, and they ignore kind of those things that you mentioned, like when you live together, when you're married, when you have kids or animals or whatever together. Like, there's going to be things that you just have to do with that person that kind of contributes to a hierarchy. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing as long as, you're not doing it like you kind of described, right?
Absolutely.
Next question is, how do you communicate between all three of you comfortably? Do you guys ever go on dates or hang out with your mutual partner together? So we just kind of talk.
Yeah. There's not really a prescribed way to go about it. As for like dates, no, not so much. But like new movie comes out, all three of us want to see it. Yeah, we'll hang out, or we, like you said, we climb together fairly regularly, just all three of us, and it is what it is.
That kind of brings up an interesting point of like, what does constitute a date? Because I mean, if we're all three together, we're not dating, but Paige is dating both of us, then maybe it's a date for her. Two different ways, but not a date. So yeah, that's a very interesting. I would agree with you that it always feels like more of a hangout. We do stuff with the three of us together, and we do bigger group activities with other friends, other partners. It is weird how you define a date in that context, right?
It's whatever you make of it. You call it a date before you start, I guess.
How do we figure out who gets what time? New to poly and struggling with this.
Google Calendars are your friend.
Yes. This kind of changed for us because for a while it was just kind of week by week, right? Just touch and go, just like, oh, when are you available? When am I available? Kind of coordination between the three of us. I think it's helped a lot that now you have a couple of days where Paige goes over to your house on those days. And then I have a day per week where we have like a set date night. But I also live with her. So
there is that, yes.
So there's a lot of time we spend together that isn't just,
a
set date night. So yeah, that changed a little bit over time. And it can be structured. It doesn't have to be. It just kind of depends on the communication styles of everyone involved, really. Because both ways worked for us. Yeah. We didn't really struggle when we didn't have the, structured days, right?
No, it was just easier. One person has a more chaotic schedule than the other, so it was a lot easier to just say, all right, we got, Mondays are, that's the night.
So less about our dynamic and more of just about you dating in general. What kind of questions do you ask someone when you start dating them in a polyamorous context or otherwise?
I always like to try and think for myself what it is that I'm looking for before going on a date and what I can theoretically manage should said date go very well and lead to additional dates. So I also like to ask whomever I'm on a date with what it is they're looking for. What kind of time do they have? How often would they like to meet with a partner should it go well and something were to form? Another thing I like to ask is about like their other partners. I can tell a lot about how a person's poly journey has been and is and how they operate by how they speak about their other partners. If they're comfortable just bragging and gushing about them, big old green flag. But if they kind of shy away from the topic, you may end up like, all right, this might be something that's like inherently hierarchical or uncomfortable. Someone's uncomfortable in the dynamic. Another big question I like to ask is how long they've been poly or living a polyamorous lifestyle. I have dated people that were both very new to it as well as just opening to try it, and I don't want to hate on anybody that is new to the lifestyle or is just starting to get into it because it is a journey. It is hard.
Yeah.
And whenever I was just starting myself, I came across a couple of people that were not interested in seeing me immediately after I told them that I had only been poly for a few months. And I got my feelings a little bit hurt about that.
Yeah.
Like, I've done the self-work. I know how to do this. And then, 3 years down the line, looking back, I cannot blame them in the slightest.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of extra emotional space in a lot of contexts to be able to help someone along that journey. And that's not something that I personally have the time for. Yeah. So what I generally ask is, what is it you're looking for? Tell me about your other partners. How long have you been polyamorous?
I see where you're coming from with the, years later, I see what they meant, like by not being comfortable dating someone who is just newly polyamorous, because I've had relationships like that. Some have gone well, some have gone not so well. One relationship I had, the person had never been polyamorous before and was essentially polyamorous. As toxic as this sounds, let me finish. For me, I know, but it ended up being just fine. We later had a very amicable breakup after years of dating. Yeah. And I understood that they kind of, wanted to be monogamous with a different person, and that was okay with me.
Been there.
I mean, but I like having the context helped me so much. It didn't it hurt a little bit, obviously, because I like this person, I was dating this person, but I knew that kind of going into it, even from the beginning. I knew that I had no expectation that this person was going to start dating me and then just go full poly, right? So it worked out. There have been other partners I've had that I was kind of like, the more experienced one, I suppose, and it did not work out very well. Despite, like you said, doing the self-work, I'm not going to bash anyone who, is newer and just needs to do more. They were doing the self-work. I'm not to discredit them at all. It's just different places, right?
Right.
The least satisfying answer that I always give, but the most honest answer for dealing with jealousy, how you deal with envy in polyamory is time. It's such an unsatisfying answer, but oh my God, is it accurate. Like I said before, meeting a partner's partner at an orgy, terrifying in the beginning, absolutely terrifying. Time passed, I learned more things and did more self-work, and I was completely fine. It didn't matter. Time. Sorry, I wish it was more satisfying. How do you explain to people unaware of polyamory what your relationship status is?
I am not in the closet about being polyamorous, but I also don't generally talk about it or make a point to talk about it. I'm just generally straightforward. I tell them that I have 2 partners and everybody knows about each other, and I just keep it simple. I'm not out here to, preach the pros and cons of non-monogamous relationships. It's what works for me, and people can accept it or not.
Here. For me, it kind of depends on the person. A lot of my family doesn't need to know. It doesn't really matter. I know they wouldn't understand, and frankly, I'm a little bit lazy to have that conversation because it's not gonna go anywhere. Whatever. Yeah. The closest family members to me do know, because I feel like it was important for them. They're gonna meet these people at some point.
Your mom's a lovely woman, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Someone that's going to meet my partners and interact with them, I don't do the thing where you just call someone a friend, right? I feel like that's so hurtful.
Right.
Even if the person kind of gets it and understands, it's just it sucks.
I'm tying back to the hierarchy thing. That really is a tough thing to deal with. If a partner's in the closet about being polyamorous and they're married, the outside party, as it were, has to accept the fact that people that are important to their partner are not going to know about their existence.
I also, despite being on the internet talking about polyamory all the time, don't consider myself outside of that context like a polyamory evangelist, right? I'm not, going around I'm very open about it, but I am not just, look at me and my multiple partners, except I do want to go to my next high school reunion and do that. I'm not kidding.
Oh, 100%.
That is the one context where I will just be witness me! And it will be lovely. I think it's also a fear of not wanting to be that guy, right? Ooh, I'm polyamorous. I'm better than you, right? Which is screwed up because that's not my fault. That is monogamy culture perceiving me. It's not necessarily something I'm doing wrong. It's a skewed lens. Is there no jealousy at all between us?
No. I mean, I think I have occasional feelings of jealousy, not specifically within the context of this the whole thing. But as time's gone on, I've gotten really good at identifying where that jealousy is coming from, and naming it tends to make it just disappear.
I agree. And I would also definitely use the word occasional, because it just, sure, it peaks
Everybody
and spurts.
feels jealous.
Right.
At
Like,
times.
You and Paige will do something that I wanted to do. Sometimes something I didn't even know I wanted to do, right? And I'll just be like, man, I'm jealous about that. And like you said, naming it kind of just lets it pass pretty easily. And over time, it's gotten so much more mild. Used to, I could go on a spiral about it, right? And now it's more of just like, dang, I was hoping we could do that. And then I remember, we can do that.
Absolutely.
Like, there are so few things that I can't do with a partner. If I expressed that I was jealous about that and wanted to do that thing, we can also do that thing. There's not anything remarkably special most of the time about doing something with someone first.
Right.
If you get to do it. In fact, side benefit, if someone does something with someone else first, then they experience that thing, and they'll be better at helping you experience that thing when you do it.
Yeah.
Polyamory life hack. This one's for me. Was him staying at your house ever an issue, and if so, how did you overcome it? Earlier on, when you two were dating, you would come over here quite often. I would never really call it an issue. The only issue I really have is like making sure the dogs are taken care of before everyone's like in bed.
Right.
And I don't like to interrupt when someone else is over. It's their date. I'm not a part of it. I don't really like to be all up in their space. It's not a rule or anything like that. Anyone who's over is usually fine interacting with me, but I just don't like to intrude. But it's more about logistics and our animals than anything else, not really about jealousy. If someone else is downstairs, I'm upstairs, I'm in my office, I go to bed, it doesn't really matter. Do you recall any issues that you had when you were coming over here more frequently?
I didn't have any issues. I was always a little bit nervous of overstepping any boundaries that I was unaware of that may have not been communicated to me. I was wrong. There weren't any that were not communicated to me. This was kind of like the first instance of, like, this is a regular and okay thing to, like, have someone over while other partner is home.
Was there a sense of, are they under communicating or just really chill?
Right.
Was
exactly.
that it?
That was exactly it. Yes.
Turns out pretty chill. How do you work through seeing how another person impacts your partner's feelings?
It's a challenge to try and separate myself from the situation. I assume we're talking about someone affecting my partner's feelings in a negative way.
Yeah.
It's difficult to be supportive without judgment. If the person that is affecting my partner's feelings in a negative way is a meta, then it is very important for me to stay out of it while still being as supportive as I can. Just even from the monogamy days when my buddies were dating somebody. If they break up, never talk shit about their ex.
Yeah.
Because if they get back together, they're going to remember that.
Yep.
Or in the same deal, like, don't air your dirty laundry whenever you're having an argument with a partner. Don't air your dirty laundry to, like, your family, because that partner's going to be coming over for Thanksgiving, and it's going to be real awkward. Yeah, that's the long and short of it. Separate myself from the situation, but still be as supportive as I can.
Yeah, that is a tricky line to toe, too, because you want to be involved to the extent that you make your partner feel better, but not to the extent that you are stepping on toes you shouldn't be stepping on.
Correct.
And sometimes that can be, especially if a meta did something that you think is pretty bad. Right?
Yeah.
Then it's really hard. That's a tricky gray area too, because it is okay to express your concerns about metas to your partner. That is okay to do, but it's also tricky to do. Right. Because you don't just want to come off like, I'm saying these things because I'm your partner and we have a hierarchy or something like that. You want to come from a place of genuine concern and well-being for them, and not
somewhere, like, coming from somewhere with a insecurity.
Exactly.
Out of insecurity.
Exactly. These next couple questions I kept because I had something to say specifically about the wording. The first question is, did you feel like there was a specific turning point of acceptance of your meta? The second question, when your wife and her boyfriend first started dating, what made coping with that easier for you? And both of these kind of, the way these questions were phrased, there's a tendency, especially with people newer to polyamory, to just, oh, this is how it is. You have to initially be a little bit adverse to this new relationship and then accept it. Right. You have to cope with things, right? There is a point that I feel like I have reached that it doesn't feel like I have to cope. It doesn't feel like I have to resist and then finally accept. It's just hey, this is the thing. Cool. Whatever, right?
It just comes from years of self-work. It does get easier.
So, no, like, there really wasn't any coping to be done. There certainly wasn't any sort of, like, resistance that, like, I had to overcome and accept. It was pretty fine. And back to that time being the ultimate the ultimate teacher of lessons. Like, it's just once you, like, get used to the process, it's, it gets so much better. Mm-hmm. In a more general sense, what specific things have you done to cope with discomfort or negative emotions while polyamorous, like while practicing polyamory?
Something that I've kind of touched on before already was if I'm having, negative feelings, dig into it. See where they're coming from, try and name it, figure out what it is. And it tends to make things a heck of a lot easier to process. And another thing is be comfortable spending time with yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you can date multiple people, but the schedules aren't always going to line up. You're going to have a little bit of alone time, and that's okay. And, not only being okay with it, but scheduling that time for yourself.
Yeah.
If you need, time for reflection, self-care, etc. So many people can get lost within a relationship, and they kind of forget who they are, and making sure to schedule that time helps.
Sometimes in monogamous relationships, people run into the issue of kind of being defined by their partner.
Oh my God.
With polyamory, it can be even worse.
Yeah.
With multiple partners, it's very easily exactly. It's very easy to be. My relationships are who I am, right? Because they do take so much time, so much emotional labor. I feel like I've only recently fully embraced the alone time thing because I'm at a place right now where I have two what I would describe as committed, quote-unquote, full-time partners. But with my work and my hobbies and my partners, I know that I don't have the emotional bandwidth to consistently date a new person.
Right.
But I will occasionally, pretty frequently, have nights to myself, nights alone. Mm-hmm. And I feel like just recently I've just been like, oh, this is actually awesome.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting there, ruminating over just ooh, they have a date and I don't. I'm loving the time to myself. I feel like people in polyamory often take alone time as some sort of failure, and it's not. Mm-hmm. Partners are not just to fill your time. Can you talk about how we work together to support our mutual partner and show her mutual love and care?
Yeah. So this was probably earlier on in my relationship with Paige, so I'm sure you probably have a lot more context on it than I do. But she had another partner in addition to the two of us, and they broke up. It was unexpected, came out of nowhere, and if I remember correctly, it was so we could try to be monogamous.
I would describe it as amicable but unexpected.
Right.
It wasn't a particularly rough breakup, but it did, kind of come out of nowhere. So.
Right. Yeah, so in any case, she was down in the dumps, obviously, as one would be. And I think you contacted me asking for gift ideas.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. And we were able to kind of brainstorm and come up with a little care package deal to help her get through a tough time.
Because Paige had the car at the time, and I can't
right.
remember where the other vehicle was, if I had it or if I just wanted to, I don't know. I took a little jog down to this just street where there's shops and stuff, and I was texting Kyle and one of Paige's other partners at the time, just oh, I found this, there's this thing down here, what do you think? We're brainstorming these gift ideas. Funny thing was, I got something for her. You contributed to the care package. Mm-hmm. Another of her partners contributed to the care package, and that partner's wife contributed to the care package. So it was very much a community effort.
Yes.
I think that really helped her.
Oh, absolutely.
We did a great job.
Yeah.
Meta teamwork. Do we have boundaries regarding venting to each other about our mutual partner?
I'm not sure any that have been established vocally, but I tend to not do that.
This doesn't really differ that much from how you interact with just friends, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're friends with someone and their partner, like, you don't talk shit on that partner. Like, it's like, and usually if I'm having a problem with Paige or another partner, I go to them first. Right. I don't do a whole lot of venting to other people. Like, if I can't resolve it with them, you know, like, we have communicated with each other, but haven't had like super deep like boundary talks because like ultimately that's on the mutual partner to make sure that my boundaries are respected in our relationship and their boundaries are respected in theirs.
Right.
You know, when your partner dates someone, that's not signing you up for more emotional labor.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's nice to do, it's nice to give, but it doesn't have to be this whole thing, right? How have we bonded when hanging out one-on-one, and what do we like about each other?
Well, you helped me move.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. We had the stereotypical, pizza and beers after the fact. So that was pretty dope.
On my end, I like how you communicate with Paige and how you make Paige feel, you know? Like, you two have a very, what I would describe as smooth relationship. You see dating profiles that are like, I'm not about that drama, which is a clear red flag that they are all about drama, by the way.
100%.
In case you didn't know. Yeah. Legitimately, that's just never really the case. It's very go with the flow, very, work things out if we need to, stuff like that. And that's what I appreciate about you.
Well, thanks, man.
Did you understand? Did you get that reference? Did you get that reference, you two? Do you ever feel the need to compete with each other? And if so, how do you resolve those feelings?
Not really. Her and my relationship is its own thing. Her and your relationship is its own thing. And they're, separate, apart from whenever we all hang out and stuff. She cares about me in an entirely different way than she cares about you. Like, you can't quantify love, so why try to compete it with it?
I only try to be collaborative and not compete. There is one thing that I thought of when I was reading this question. When we went rock climbing, one of the first couple times, you were clearly better than me.
Okay, fair. And you have far surpassed me at this point.
But, I don't know about that, but but I kind of just like, wish I could do that. So that kind of competition. It wasn't even about our relationships necessarily, but it was more in a way of just like, I'm going to be able to do that. And like learning from you instead of competing with you or trying to outdo you. I was just like, that's how he did that. That's how I'm going to try to do it. Yeah. Because for those of you who don't know a lot about rock climbing, height makes a big difference. And sometimes you climb with people that are a different height than you and they have to do slightly different things. We are at least sort of similar heights. You got that wingspan.
I got the wingspan on you.
Got that wingspan though. Some of the grabs I'm just like, Kyle! It was more inspiring than competing, How has masculinity played a role in our relationship as metamors? This is a big one for a lot of people. Not necessarily us, but this is a huge problem that a lot of men have with their partners dating other men. There is a toxic part of masculinity that tells us, like, we own our partners. We have to protect our partners, shield our partners, and every bit of that learned toxicity fights you sometimes,
It's baked into us from a very, very early age because that's just kind of how our society is right now, for good or for ill. There is a lot of unpacking that has to be done, especially whenever it comes to your partner dating other people. At the end of the day, it comes down to recognizing and emphasizing the fact that my partner is just that. They are an equal partner in this relationship. I don't own my partner. They are their own person, and they can make their own decisions. Getting to that point was incredibly important. And honestly, that helped a lot with jealousy things down the line as well. Because I think a lot of that jealousy and insecurity stems from that ingrained toxic masculinity that most of us have.
A lot of the toxic masculinity that I had learned, like you said, since birth, pretty much, was fighting me. I get a lot of comments that are just rooted in really toxic, really shitty masculinity. And I look at those comments and I'm like, I used to think that way. And now they make no sense to me. Right? and they're always super ignorant. Like, clearly they don't know anything about polyamory, non-monogamy at all, and it's just jab, 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 like, oh, you let your wife have sex with another dude, and it's just, the comments I get sometimes just remind me of how far I've come.
I think for me, a mental turning point was having bisexual women as partners, experiencing that partner going out on a date with a man, and then having that same experience, your partner going on a date with a woman. And the thing that finally mentally clicked in my head is, why am I uncomfortable with her dating a man but not a woman? If we're keeping with the irrational train of thought, the woman is just as equally likely to take her away from me as the man is. But I know my partner's not going to leave me. And just unpacking that helped me a lot, strangely enough.
With polyamory, I've often got the question, aren't you afraid your partner's going to leave you? And I always say, that's the beauty of polyamory. They don't have to. They're under no obligation to do so. Right. So no, I'm not. There's also kind of the pseudo-feminist argument. It's just like, oh, well, men are in general like less trustworthy, right? Which there's some validity there, I feel like. We don't have the best track record as a gender. However, I trust my partner's judgment. That's not for me to decide, right? I know that my partner is capable of weeding out men that are going to manipulate or be horrible or anything like that. Like, that's not something I have to worry about because my partner is a completely capable person in and of themselves. They don't need me to do that. Do we feel that our connection as metas has changed through different stages of your relationship with Paige? I don't feel like there was a necessary evolution to our friendship, but I feel like it just happened organically.
Right. It did evolve, but independent of our individual relationships with Paige.
Yeah, we didn't feel like we had to be friends with each other. We had to know each other because we're both seeing her. We just, hung out together because we were seeing her, and we kind of like each other.
Yeah, works out.
So we did have a couple of requests for a hug.
All right, sweet.
Hug me. But the camera's at a weird angle. There we go. Oh, we're good. We got it. In frame. Look at us. Professionals. There you are. There you guys are. Thank you, Kyle, for joining me.
Absolutely.
And answering questions. I feel like this is going to be really helpful to a lot of people because I keep thinking about my little baby polyamory self. I wish I heard this conversation back then.
Oh my God, right.
Right?
Absolutely.
I feel like it would have helped so much. So I hope you all benefited from it. If you liked this video, there's a whole lot more to come. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, all that good stuff. Until next time, peace!
See you guys.